Hey guys, and welcome to the, I think it's the 21st shave of August, Austere August, same gear as usual, Omega Bore 011842. It's the Faux Jade Connaught shaving version, and the Karve Christopher Bradley with a B plate, solid bar. Chisel Face Midnight Stag is the older label. I think it's still really a pretty neat design. And I forgot to actually take the Nacet out from the previous shave, so we'll just leave it in. Let me show it to you. Forgot to take it out and dry it. It was a late night shave. And my routine is burgeoning, developing at this location. I'm using a basin of water instead of being at a sink, and so everything's just kind of weird. The end of the shave, I'm emptying water in the bathroom, that sort of thing. I did refine it a little bit because I realized that instead of taking both of these bowls to the bathroom for water, because this is my swish bowl where I rinse my razor, and this is my clean water supply where I pour it into my basin here. I didn't really need to take both to the bathroom to fill them up, because the white bowl over here is big enough to where I just fill it up a lot, and then I can fill the swish bowl up with that water. So that further simplifies things. Going to continue to use my Jello mold, copper Jello mold. It has done well. And we've had the brush soaking for a little while, and then we do continue to have the aftershave splash for the Midnight Stag, as well as the EDP, the cologne for Midnight Stag. And I'm so glad to see that it is going down very slowly, even with me doing quite a number of sprays. And let's see, today's shave, this is Saturday, and so we're going to be doing the last of the three sprays, and then next shave we'll do 4. All right, for the EDP. Oh, and I feature today's change. I have a towel hanging nearby. I installed one of those hooks, one of those stick-em hooks, and so I don't have to fish for that anymore, so that'll be nice, instead of wiping stuff on my shirt. Alright, so I'm going to get my face wet, and then we will load the brush up for today. Now, I thought about it for a minute. What am I going to do? Because I had kind of run out of things to try. Well, we did a dry load. Why don't we try a wet load today? Let's just see what happens. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to try like the Marco style load, because we talked about that briefly last time. I'm going to pull the brush up out of the water. Not going to shake it or anything like that. I am going to tilt it over so that gravity can pull out any water that it wants to. Now with the Chisel Face Midnight Stag that I used 2 years ago, it did not like the bore brush with a lot of water. So we're kind of going to check and see if that works again. All right, so this does feel quite heavy, even though, you know, it has that hollow space in there. There are still quite a bit of water in the bristles here, and so expect this to get pretty airy and sudsy, you know, that kind of thing. Should we try a 10-second load and see how it goes? Let's try a 15, just in case my assumption is correct. And there we go. 15 comes around right there, and who knows, I might be incorrect. Just medium pressure. More seconds, and there's 15, and it's actually not as frothy as I thought. I think I've gathered up plenty of water, and so maybe could be the Zenith bore that I was using before is the one that really didn't like the overly wet loading, but this one looks pretty good. Okay, so I'm going to sweep the extra suds. It's kind of what I've been doing this month. Off of the puck and into the lather bowl. Now, of course, this does throw off the data that I keep. In a sense, I do keep the amount of water added during the shave, and I'm going to guess that maybe a quarter teaspoon, half a teaspoon of water might have been in the brush. That's more than I usually start with. But one of the metrics I do have, as well as how much water I add during the shave, is the dampness of the brush. And so I could say this one was a wet brush. Usually I say lightly wet, but this is a kind of heavily wet brush. Not quite soaking, but maybe soaking. And so we can definitely see the change because we are jumping into more of an airy lather right away instead of staying with the pasty, and it's a little bit more mature than it would be at this point because of the extra water. But it looks like that amount of loading is going to give me plenty of lather during the shave here. Smelling great as usual. Let me go ahead and tilt you down and we'll start adding water to this. Developing up quite nicely. I bet I loaded plenty here. Of course, I did triple the load time from my normal lightly wet loading method. And so if this is an overabundance of lather, then I can start reducing it. Maybe try 10 seconds next time of a really damp brush. And this is a change I've always told you guys about, that you could use to as a shortcut to a good lather. Is having some more water in your brush when you go to load your soap. I like to have only a lightly wet brush because it then makes it a more objective amount of water added. Whereas if I have a full brush of water like I started with today, then the type of brush used and the size of brush used becomes a more important factor. And when I'm trying to help you guys to reproduce lathers, I often have guys that follow my shaves. When they're looking like a person who's wanting to lather up Midnight Stag may stumble upon one of these videos, and so then how are they going to reproduce it if they don't know how much water stays in my fully saturated brush? But if I shake most of it out, then that's kind of comparable with many brushes. It makes the difference due to the variation of brushes. It makes it more minimal. Now we've got I can feel the viscosity and the thickness in this lather. And so boy, I am going to end up with a lot of lather today because I still kind of feel like I need to keep adding. We have added about 18 milliliters of water. And that's quite a bit considering we had more water in the brush to start out with than usual. Let's take a little feel, get my fingers wet. See how light it feels as I press it. Not a whole lot of cushion, but very nice slickness. Let's just go with that. That's to give you a look at the consistency here. Kind of got some elastic heaviness to it there. It's taken me a second to shake this small amount off my brush, but you can see how it behaves, and that can be a good indicator as you work your own lather up at home. Nice big stretch. Very pretty looking lather. Is it different? Does it look better than the other lathers? You know, it might actually look a little creamier. Maybe starting out with a wetter brush, that would be an interesting possibility. I may be leaving this a little drier than usual, or maybe it might just be the wetter brush method. Who knows? Maybe we'll play around with that for the rest of this month and see, because this kind of appears to be a little creamier of a lather than I usually get. That's why we do these things, in case we happen upon some cool technique. All right. Maybe the fact that there was more water involved in the loading process, maybe that, and this is something I don't know it all about, maybe that let me pull up a better quality of soap. You know, maybe certain ingredients are picked up right away. Certain parts of the soap are picked up right away, and then a better part has to come after a little bit more loading, because it takes maybe longer for that to be picked up. I don't know. I don't really know. It's feeling great on my face. We've got a little bit around. It doesn't really look too dry. I am going to take this excess here off the brush back in the bowl, just so it doesn't fall off. It maybe is a little bit drier than I, might normally like, but feels very nice. So what I'm going to do maybe is work this a little bit on my face, and then add a little bit more water to the brush. Yeah, see, it's starting to build up now around my goatee and stuff, and that's just what happens when it needs a little bit more water by my standards. You guys may like exactly this level of wetness. I like it a little less pasty, but it's got a great creamy feel to it, and so if you like this particular arrangement, then I certainly can understand that. It feels really luxurious. This is very awkward going this direction on my face. I pretty much always go this way. Oh, and there we go. We've got some lather away, because, see, this kind of needed a little bit more water, and it was generating more of itself there as I added more. We'll go just a little bit longer and make sure we have a nice work in. We get that, keep that lather on the face for a little while. The water has worked at softening the stubble, and then the lather, my guess is that the lather continues that a little bit, but it also works on the skin, softens up and Kind of acts to lubricate the skin. And we want that for a nice, comfy shave. And a protected shave where we are don't have a lot of cuts and things like that. I do like the simplicity of not having to turn on a faucet all the time. To rinse things, because I have the bowl of water. Now, of course, a lot of you guys who face lather, well, even you guys who bowl lather, sometimes you might have a sink full of water in play. I always had kids who had the potential to be doing nasty things in my sink, and so I never got used to the whole let's have a sink full of water for rinsing my face and razor and all that stuff. This is a very small amount of tugging I'm getting, very manageable, not painful at all, barely even uncomfortable. Swish bowl, cleans the razor, and we rinse. Well, looking at the amount of lather I have, and the fact that it is still kind of a concentrate here, the 15 seconds was overkill by a good margin. I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit more water, integrate that water. A little too dry. I mainly am knocking the sides here as I try to work the brush into the corners. When I'm doing general swirls kind of in the middle, it's not really a concern. We've got a ton of lather. That water I added just kind of caused it to explode in quantity, and I got even more than I started out with a second ago. So might as well be super generous with it. And I keep working that brush, but I don't really need to since we've already done the first pass. Don't need to keep scrubbing. All right. Cross grain now. Razor's moving nice and fast as usual. Loading up for the third. Definitely don't have to worry since we're kind of still dealing with a lather that's on the dry side of where I might like it, so I don't have to worry about the water drips on my face, things like that. I don't have to worry about them weakening the lather. Nice quick third pass coming up, comfy. I'm sure, because we've taken down a lot of the hairs. Can do an upward slant stroke here if I feel like it. As always, light touch. Since this is the third pass, let's kind of go cross grain right here to prepare for that next against the grain work. And there we go. And fourth pass, I'll probably skip the cheeks. I think they've been done very well. We'll just do this right there. And I could do a whole nother 3 or 4 pass shave with what I have left in the bowl there. So the 15 seconds was overly profitable. So now we'll go ahead and work on the against the grain work right here in kind of 2 separate oblique approaches instead of hitting it full on. And that just works better for my face. You guys, many of you guys are able to go against the grain, and I think it's terrific because it usually makes it so much easier to get a closer cut. And there we go. Nice residual slickness. And I can, at this point, I can just kind of zip around, still maintaining that light touch. And there we go, great shave. Well, now that I know that that was a concentrated lather, a little bit more than I normally like, I'm not surprised to see that we used about 22 milliliters of water by the end. The first pass was, pretty concentrated. Now, the nice thing about that is it often will give the brush a better feel because it masks a little bit of the feel of the brush fibers. And so if you've got a boar or something that's young, not quite as soft as it's going to be later, or a scritchy type badger brush, those Simpsons brushes, they cost so much, but I've tried the best and the super, and they just aren't all that soft. They've got a little bit of light scrub to them, and so I can definitely see how guys would want to run thick lathers through those if they want comfort. But I personally would just rather use my wet lathers and just buy a better brush, buy a softer one. But maybe those Simpson ones are not, they're not really marketed as really soft brushes. I sure hope they're not, because they're not. Let's see. Yeah, we have a ton of lather left over. We made about 8 or 9 passes of lather today, so we'll definitely be reducing. Let's do that wet load again tomorrow, and let's reduce it down to 10 seconds, maybe even 5. Why don't we take it down to 5? See what happens. This brush is different than the Zenith, that I was using, and so perhaps it does a better job of picking up lather when wet. These tips may be a little, I'm pretty sure the Zenith tips are a little softer. And they were young. It was a young brush as well. Some of the tips had split, but not a lot. That's kind of the same as this Omega, but the Omega just has a little bit more scrubbier feel to it, and I think that may make all the difference regarding picking up soap. Let's get a good rinse now. Great shave with no irritation during the shave, or of course lasting afterwards. After shave for Midnight Stag, and this does have from Chiseled Face things like calendula and witch hazel and aloe, in addition to the alcohol and the fragrance and menthol. Barely any of the alcohol sting, because we just had good technique, and we've got a very smooth blade, of course, because of its age. And the last time we'll be doing 3 sprays per arm, and I really do enjoy, heard me say this many times, I really enjoy the fact that I put it on my arm and it's around me at first in this cloud, but so often when I just spray it on my neck, I do smell it around me in the cloud, and then half an hour later I don't really smell it anymore because I've gone blind to it. But for the next 15 hours, I'll still get whiffs of it, and I can definitely smell it anytime I smell my arms and my wrists, and so it really enhances the experience for me. So highly successful today with the wet loading. I'll play around more with that. Very cool. I don't think there's anything to say except let's put a dot on the thing. So we're at 428 now. Coming up against a nice 430 milestone there. Who knows how long it'll last? I sure don't. All right, guys. Well, I feel like we're getting toward the end of this first side A, because I haven't flipped this blade yet. I feel like we're getting there because I'm since maybe use number 270, I've had to add in that against the grain right here to get this more closely. And for a while there, maybe after 100, between 100 and even now, I've had to add a fourth pass to get things taken care of. So we can see a gradual aging of the blade, a gradual dullness. It's just happening very slowly. I'm wearing on the blade, but I'm doing it very slowly, apparently, and so it's not going to last forever. I was talking with somebody today online, comments, and he said, I wonder if a blade could last a decade with how many uses you've gotten out of it. And since I've gotten, what, a year and a third or something like that is what I've kind of gotten on this thing. I don't really see it, going a decade, unless you were to shave just every week and you have a very wispy beard, then you might be able to do the same thing, maybe. But I think corrosion and rust resistance there would be your main foe. So making sure to dry your blade afterwards, I think, would be highly important in that kind of scenario. And I was telling him that I think maybe 60 to 80 uses. If I had to guess, I'm guessing that many uses is going to perhaps take this blade to another level. And that may be a little bit more work than I want, which would cause me then to flip the blade and then start the next phase and see what the next major phase, see what how many uses we're able to get out of it then. We'll just have to see. All right, my friends, this is Sugar Daddy Shaves, and I sure hope you guys have been able to get something good from this video that helps you out. Good night. Take care now.